neighbors? It is Brian and Philip here from Neighbors Don't Knock. How are you guys? We have a very special Christmas episode. We are here with Matt from the Houston Toy Museum, owner and operator. He and his lovely wife, who unfortunately is not here with us today, but we are so happy that we have you. We are going to be talking toys of the decade, maybe that last-minute Christmas gift that you can get, or that illustrious toy you've been craving to bring back into your life from your childhood. Come with us on this journey on this episode of Neighbors Don't Knock.
Teaser, it's Candyland in here.
Welcome to Neighbors Don't Knock, the show that brings you hilarious, unapologetic conversations only these neighbors can have. Join them and guests in their weekly mission to expand the neighborhood. Now, here's your hosts, Brian Chambers and Philip Goffrey.
What's going on, Philip? How are you?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. I'm pretty jazzed up. This is
you should be jazzed up. It is Candyland for us in here.
I'm vibrating just a little bit.
Please don't say that while I'm sitting next to you on the couch.
You disturbed.
There's a Cabbage Patch doll right here and going right. But Matt, welcome to Neighbors Don't Knock, man. Thank you for taking time out to hang out with us.
Oh, absolutely. No, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
I mean, it is fabulous walking in here. We're here at the Houston Toy Museum. Matt, how long has this place been going?
We just celebrated a year, October 6th.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's relatively new.
It definitely took you a year to put everything where it is right now. There's no question in my mind.
Oh no, we had to jump at it right at the beginning, but I think we got everything planned out in like a month.
Wow.
We had a month to put everything in the exhibits.
Yeah, to put this into context, y'all, I mean, this is like a multi-story, literally my entire childhood and every childhood I imagined from like the 50s forward is in this place. It is unbelievable.
Not just the 50s. I mean, walking around, and you can Matt, you were gracious enough to put out a couple of beautiful toys out here. I mean, you have everything from the first Barbie to an original, I guess it was original Mickey.
Yeah, that was the first Mickey.
First Mickey right there. Star Wars Legos, which obviously came much later because, there is all the Star Wars, Harry Potter, the pirate ship, all this back over here you can kind of see. Elmo, Game Boy, I mean, Cabbage. So you have everything from like the 50s all the way to present day decade, or is this the oldest toy? The Mickey right here is
the oldest toy we have in the whole museum is a teddy bear from like the 1890s.
Oh wow!
These blue 50s out of the water.
Yeah,
right.
And we have some Parker Brothers games from 1890s. A lot of people don't know that company's been around for so long. But the teddy bear, he's stuck in the field goal position. He's like petrified. He doesn't move.
Wow.
So he's pretty fragile. So we don't really move him much once he's in his spot.
130 plus years.
Yeah.
Might be a little wear on some of the joints.
I'm a little jealous. But I will say, Philip, that I did notice right next to you. If you noticed, we have.
I feel at home.
Yeah, we feel at home. We have our own Bill and Ted doll. That was awesome. I love that little touch.
You're home away from home.
I appreciate that very much.
So, all right. So we're sitting here in a bunch of toys. Let's talk about toys because it's Christmas time. So do you get a lot of people that will come over here calling you like, "Hey, Matt, you're a toy guy. What can I get for my spouse, my partner, my kid?" I mean, do you get that question?
Yeah, we get a lot of. Do you think my kid would like this? Or
oh, really? Okay.
Do you think my kid's old enough for this? Not too many questions like what we should get them. More, I think people usually come in and they're just so awestruck by the things in the gift shop because not a lot of people know that they do make repros of toys now. And like,
very interesting.
You can get an Evel Knievel that looks exactly like the original, and so people are able to give that gift to someone and it'll spark that memory, and it's almost a more thoughtful gift because you're giving them a memory. You're not necessarily giving them a toy because most likely they're not going to play with that toy. They'll probably put it up on their office because that's getting more popular and more accepted to
display, right?
To display,
Right.
Because you can put something in your office, and any person that comes in there will immediately know that's the decade he's from. That's the kind of style that he is based on what kind of toy,
Now, is that a singular company that's like leasing out rights to reproduce these toys, or is the actual original manufacturers like Hasbro's of the
So
world
yeah,
coming in?
they're leasing it out. So like right now, Super 7 is a big company that's been getting a lot of licensing, and they've been doing a lot of really cool toys that, like, back when I was a kid, my favorite toys were the ones that had more articulation. You know,
Yeah,
that I felt like it was worth more because I could do more with it.
I agree. 100%.
And so now there's companies that they do put out these older toys, retro, that look like the old Star Wars ones that, you know, all you really could move was the arms and legs.
Yeah,
And
sort of straight up.
so
and
they're
down,
still
yeah.
doing that to kind of give people that feeling of owning something that you wanted as a kid, but you didn't really necessarily get the chance to.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I remember my old He-Man toys. You couldn't move the
Well,
arms, right? They were
well,
stuck
speaking,
in-
Yeah.
speaking of, actually, am I allowed?
Yeah.
Okay, I almost don't want to touch toys, but yeah. So like, here you
Yes,
go.
he's-
Speaking of
He's
He-Man,
locked in the bicep position.
Yeah.
because they had like the band in them, right?
Yeah.
So So you
it's
had
the
to-
first thing that goes bad with those. They actually
sense.
sell new bands that fit way better, and they're more snug and easy to put for, you know.
I can't really believe that I'm holding the He-Man right now. Like you know how long it's been since I've held a He-Man like this. I used to have this exact one.
Yeah.
I even had the when he was Adam, you know, in the
Yeah.
white with the white and stuff like that.
The white
so.
and purple pants.
Yes, the
Yeah.
purple, the purple tights.
You know, He-Man and Thundercats, you know, I look back on those shows, a little bit less innocence that I remember. It's a bunch of-
Yeah, you understand the jokes a little bit better.
Yeah, a lot of scantily clad men running around
Yeah.
G-strings too. It's fascinating to look back on those particular runs.
Where do you start, like, by collecting? When do you decide? Is it just whatever fits the bill for you with a toy? Is it just like whatever strikes you, or do you
Well, it depends on what
find
kind
history
of.
with it?
Yeah, it's really the history. If I can find a toy that I can tell a good story about history, or help someone look at life a different perspective based on, because it's important not only the toys you had, but the toys you didn't have. That's what you can take away from the museum, is that, you know, some people had toys that were very easily accessible that they could get, and some just they had only like two kinds, you know, and so there's a lot of that in the museum. We talk a lot about that.
Well, okay, so when Christmas rolled around, what were you as a kid asking for? What was that toy that you
Oh,
you
you're like
asked Santa?
full on rewind? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what was that toy that you had to like, or I mean,
think
everyone had one.
it always started with like the Sears catalog.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you would get the Sears catalog, and that
Flip
was your
through.
checklist. You would circle everything and get nothing, but that was part of the season, was getting the catalog, and just seeing, you know, what all is, just even the artists that would place all the toys for the picture. They were building dioramas before they even knew what they were doing, you know, and it's that kind of like art that we like to focus on, because like it's the box art that's done by people we don't know their names. They're not heavily known, but how many of these people kind of taught you what career you were going to choose? You know, how much effect did they have on your life? Like how many Joe collectors went to the military?
Yeah.
You know, and so
I didn't think about that.
I'm always interested. I always ask people, like, what was your favorite toy? Okay, well, what was your career? You know, and to see the correlation between these things that our parents gave us that ended up drastically changing our lives, and we never even took a second thought about it. You know, like most people, I put my toys away. Whenever you get into high school and stuff, you see, you know, all your friends put their stuff away.
Were you an only child?
No, I have 3 siblings.
Okay.
And so I had toys from like
Older-
even
older?
older, because I have like a brother that's 6 years older than me. So
Okay.
I got his hand-me-down. So I have all the wrestlers from
okay.
the early 80s that I
Yeah.
would have missed if I didn't
yeah.
have that older brother. And then I had a little brother, and me and him, we were just always playing together. So our toys are each other's. You know, he's a toy collector as well.
That's so cool. It's so funny when you just bring up little things like, oh, my brother had the early 80s wrestlers. I completely forgot those even existed until you said that. And all of a sudden,
Wrestling
all
buddies?
these
You never had a
memories.
wrestling buddy?
No, but my cousins had all the really early and mid 80s wrestling toys, like
The
Jake
big
the
rubber
Snake with
ones.
Damien.
Yeah,
and then they had the
yeah,
ones
yeah.
that would jump or have like some kind of action. Like the
Yeah.
Ultimate Warrior
They
always
had-
had like a
they had
Ultimate
the
thrower.
Warrior
ring-
was my
They
favorite.
had
Yeah.
the ring and everything with the
Oh.
ropes and yeah.
Jake the Snake and Ultimate
Jake the
Warrior,
Snake.
$1 Million Man. So you've been collecting for a long time. You got all your toys. or at least most of them that you put away,
Well,
you kept, or
It really just started one day. Actually, my wife got me back into toys because we went to go take some pictures at like a half-price book. She was a big reader, and I wasn't. And she was like, "Well, is there anything you used to read?" And I was
There's
like,
like
"I
a
guess
little
comic
game
books."
section and
You know,
stuff,
and
yeah.
I said comic books, and so we took a picture with us holding our books, and then afterwards, me and the photographer ended up buying some, and then I started going to a comic shop. But then that's where I started seeing the toys that I had, and I was like, "Oh."
Just like one or two on display.
Yeah,
next
and
to
I
it.
was like,
yeah,
oh, I
okay.
didn't even think that was a possible thing to do. And then I started I'm very frugal, so I would just bide my time, you know. And there's no one of a kind toys, you know, only people. So I would just bide my time and get it for like $1 or whatever it may be. And so I always felt like, oh, if I can keep my hobby as like didn't cost a lot, I felt like this is a good hobby, you know, like it felt rewarding. It was only until like after like 10 years of collecting.
Yeah, so tell me this. So if
just
you're
you
at the,
needed a spot, right? Is
Yeah.
that is it like so much you just?
where's
is
all
that
this stuff
where
being stored at the 10-year mark?
We had like an apartment above our garage that was my man cave, and it was wall to wall, shelves in front of the walls, everything was cut like
I,
It was very-
I
like-
dream of a man cave one day that we could.
It
put our
was very
toys in.
organized.
He-Man's riding on
you
Barbie's
know?
shoulders.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
But dude, that would be like that'd be some of the most epic, like staged out things. Because I
Yeah.
mean, that's what we used to do. My buddy and I with our GI Joes, we literally would make an entire battle in his room
Yeah.
over everything, and then we wouldn't hanging people, from ceilings and whatnot.
hanging people. What kind of G.I. Joe wars
Yeah.
were you
I
at?
just say, but like strings, like
Yeah.
the guys were like being, launching and jumping off the cliff or whatever.
Charlie made an example of him again, you know.
I just remember
Wow.
we couldn't touch it though. Like
After
once
you
you
set
made
it
once
up.
you made the most epic setup, you could not touch it for at least like a day or two.
Yeah.
Like you at least minimum.
Yep.
Like you're like no, don't ruin it.
That became a, I guess, problem in quotes if you had the bigger sets too. Like we were talking off camera earlier that you have an aircraft carrier here,
Yeah.
and I had an aircraft carrier. And when you set everybody up on the deck of that thing and in the superstructure and down below it's got pockets, it's like I don't
Takes a
want
lot
to
of
take that
time,
down
right?
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why that toy is so rare, is because one, you either had to have the money to have it, or two, you had to have the space.
yeah.
Now, if most parents saw that and they thought, "There's no way that would even fit him on my table, my dining room table."
6 feet long, right?
So
It's-
it's the world's largest play set. So it was very intimidating for parents. But every time you see a picture of like someone getting that back in the '80s, man, those pictures are always fire because the smile on those kids' faces. It's always fun to look at those kinds of pictures.
yeah, I was very, very young when I got mine. It was a Santa Claus gift.
Oh, okay.
And my parents still have the VHS from the camcorder of me discovering the gigantic present that Santa Claus left, like leaning against our fireplace and
Yeah.
losing my little mind.
I have
mean,
to
it was-
see that, please.
Yeah.
I'll
That-
hunt
that-
down.
yeah,
I'll
that-
hunt
Yeah,
down.
looks-
Yeah.
actually, we're gonna show that to our viewers. So we're gonna have Philip get that so we can
Don't
see.
put me on the spot. I gotta find it now. You
yeah,
know?
we're gonna dig that up
I will-
because
I will hunt. I
because
promise you
right
that.
now it's the only evidence that he had this aircraft carrier. And if you don't know what we're talking about, the GI Joe aircraft carrier, it's massive. It is, and
Six or
I've
6
seen,
and a half feet long.
Yeah.
something
yeah,
like that.
and I've seen yours up that you have
It hangs
here.
off that 6-foot table up there. Yeah.
It's it's one of the most coveted things that if you were a GI Joe collector or even in it, you just wanted between that and the craft that went with it or whatever. It's just amazing. And
I didn't have the craft.
you didn't have. Oh no! Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, man, your childhood.
Yeah. Oh,
I was
so
deprived.
undeprived of your childhood, right? But Philip, why don't you tell our fellow neighbors the epic conclusion of your aircraft carrier?
There's not too much to tell the story, but the truth is that
Yeah, it is a short story.
G.I. Joe and his comrades in arms got deployed on the aircraft carrier, and it got taken out by an aerial attack in my backyard with a whole lot of cherry bombs and M80s that I rigged up along the entire thing and underneath the decking, and it was spectacular to watch the aircraft carrier go.
Hit the dirt!
But looking back on it, that's a pretty big regret, actually. Blowing up my G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, I think it was an it was an F-14 or an old F-16, the plane that they had. They had one of
No,
the
it was
two.
the white one. Like it looked almost like a spaceship.
Like a
almost.
nondescript.
Yeah.
No, I had the space shuttle. That was blown up in the same
You
war.
blew up the space shuttle
Yeah,
too.
that was trying to get to orbit.
You
to
just didn't want any of your toys,
They
did you?
were trying to leave orbit to escape.
You're an angry child.
Yeah.
Who had access to
Little
fireworks.
Sid
Yeah.
action going up
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, it was an epic war.
What would let's kind of start. What would be a top toy, or I guess a top 5 list of toys in here when people come in here? In your opinion, I mean, and we're talking. And I know this is kind of a broad range, but we could probably go each decade, I guess. But,
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about like Holy Grails,
yeah.
the aircraft carrier, that's like the Holy Grail of Holy Grails in my eyes. I feel like
Okay.
everyone searches for that, and even non-Joe people still see that, and it's an awe-inspiring toy. Probably our number one Barbie.
Which this is the original Barbie right here.
That's number one. The
And
blonde
I'm not
cone.
even going to touch the original Barbie, but that's
yeah,
the original Barbie.
yeah. Her and Mickey.
She'll
probably
slap
not
your
so
hand.
much.
Don't worry.
She would slap my
Yeah.
hand for
Yeah.
touching her.
But yeah, so that one just
My wife
walked in
wants
one
that
day, and we were able to pick her up for the museum, and then of course the number one Mickey. Those two are two of my favorite toys in the whole museum. Yeah.
So
Do you find it hard to distinguish, or I guess not distinguish, but
No,
hard to
I mean
maybe-
it depends because like when people come in, they usually say the same kind of things. One, they don't know we're an actual museum; they think we're just a toy store. But then when they see the museum, and then it keeps getting bigger, and then it's fun to watch their excitement grow and grow and grow, and then they're like, "Yeah, I had all these toys," or and then it's fun. It's like what you said earlier that you forgot something existed. That's one of my favorite moments in the museum because, in my eyes, when I know that you forgot a toy that existed, it means you forgot every memory that toy is around, and we usually bring our toys everywhere. So I feel like you're remembering a lot of your life you forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian and I were having a conversation off camera earlier today in preparation for sitting down with you for this conversation. And he was asking me, what about you? What are your favorite toys, memories? And all of a sudden, all these little memories started floating up of toys I had completely forgotten about. Like, what was it? Silverhawks?
Silverhawks. Yeah.
Silverhawks. It's so fun. I mean, just having the conversation was just so much joy and
Yeah.
memory that pops up. So seeing it all is it's something special.
And that's really like what made us want to start the museum was, I'd show my friends and family, and I was always greeted with happiness. I was always greeted with happy memories. I never had anyone come in and have a bad time. And it was always funny for the people that didn't show a lot of emotion to show emotion at those moments. And so I was like, man, I just wish I could just experience this all the time. And my wife suggested, well, why don't we do a toy museum? We go to a lot of museums. And then that was 10 years ago, and it's just been kind of like a fictional plaything that we pretend in our mind, like, oh yeah, when we have the museum, we'll do this. Or, oh, this would be a good idea for the museum. And so it became just kind of like this fun thing that we would pretend about, but it was a long time, but it happened at the right moment for us. So
if you walk in, you're going to get sucked in, and you're going to want to go explore more. It's just,
Don't show up here 10 minutes before you have to catch a show at the Heights Theater. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly, right?
That's not the right play.
It's
I like people. I always tell them, come get your tickets in the morning. Come, because you can always leave and go eat lunch. Go, if your kid needs a nap, go take a nap. If you need a nap, go take a nap and come back. Because I want people to spend as much time as possible here because there's so much here to read and there's so much here to learn. And just the different outtakes on our different outlooks on history to get other different opinions and to see how other people grew up is very, very important. And so I want people to spend a lot of time here because I feel like toys are a good representation of what like society deemed as acceptable at the times that they came out. So it's a very interesting way to look at history because it's all these little snapshots. And so that's why I like when people don't make donations. I'm always like, well, do you have any pictures? Because that's what I want more than the toys, because the toys are everywhere. But your picture can set someone back, like one picture up there is, it's in the 50s. So you have tinsel on the tree, you have the wood walls and wood paneling walls, and it really dates it and shows you like this is what life was like at this time when this toy was everything to someone. This is what it was.
That's a very cool aspect. And actually, I'm going to throw this out to anyone viewers, or if you're listening, you can email pictures. You can email them to the podcast at admin@neighborsdon'tknock.com, or contact the Houston Toy Museum and send them your pictures. We'll put Matt's email and all the information in the episode description. Or post it up, man. If you have a picture that just happens to be on your phone, because some people are kind of like that. They're very nostalgic. They carry those certain memories on their phones, even older pictures now, and they post it up. So we'd love to see those. I mean, especially around Christmas. I mean, that's just
we need some throwback Christmas pics.
I think that'd be great.
You got my gears turning in such a big way now, because I never would have thought about that, but you hit the nail on the head. Society really did determine in those sort of decades or generations what was appropriate, because it's the parents buying the toys.
Mm-hmm. They started understanding marketing. They started understanding mass marketing, and so once you get to the 80s, I like to call that the 30-minute ad era. It didn't start with the cartoon. They created a mold of a figure. They told an artist, say, hey, make a figure like this, and then they'd have a guy draw it up. They'd have another guy go to that department. He's going to write the whole backstory behind all of it. He's going to come up with the comic books. He's going to come up with the thermoses and all the different kinds of things. They really started understanding mass marketing. And that's why in the 70s and 80s, you're getting a huge flood of all these new toys, or these not one-hit wonders, but they're like these one seasons. They would create one season of a show, get you to buy the toys, and that's all they needed was just to, it almost give you the story. It was an easy way for you to understand the story, but also as a good ad,
Okay, so let me ask you this. So obviously you're a collector, right? And have you ever considered making a toy? Or if you were going to start a line of toys, what area would that be?
I don't think I've ever really had that drive to make a toy.
Okay.
Which is weird, because whatever I'm doing, I usually come up with products while I'm doing it to make it easier, because I'm always looking for the best way to do it, something. But I haven't had that happen with toys yet. I think I'm just always too enamored with the history and all the amount of toys that there are.
It's colossal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an
and
undertaking.
we do have kids come in sometimes who are going to college for making toys and things. And
interesting. I didn't even know that you could do that. I mean, it's more like creative arts type of thing.
Yeah, but there's actual programs now that, there's a role for these people now.
Makes sense.
But in the past, they didn't know, like digital arts and all these things that are now a thing. Like the toy departments back in the 80s, they would be like, all these people around you in this classroom, you be nice to them. You are going to have to work with them, because there's not that many people in the toy world. And so back then, that's why a lot of these guys, they all knew each other. They all went to school together. It was more of a collaboration and stuff. But that's where now I'm starting to see people come in and like, oh yeah, actually I'm going to university to do toys. They'll show me pictures of their toys that they've created, and very fun stuff. And
I mean, have you ever thought about opening up something like that here, on kind of a very small level, where people can come in and kind of create a little
design
toy
studio,
or design
if you
studio or something like that?
Yeah, so I told that guy once he's done with his degree plan or whatnot, even if he wanted to come now, I would love to do like a TED Talk, because one of our biggest things we want to do here is to help kids find their community faster. Because when I was a kid, they would tell you, go to school, go to college. Well, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Just go to college. You'll figure it out.
Get the paper, and then you'll figure it out.
There's so many kids now that are capable of doing something now. Why not just tell them you can? You can write. Like I had a children's author come. I said, okay, well, after you read your book, but tell the kids that they can write now. They don't have to wait till they're an adult to do anything. If they have that spark, why not?
Yeah.
Let the ember grow. Why not do it now instead of letting the world push the genius out of that child.
Interesting.
Okay.
I think the mindset that's going into toys is different. The science behind toys is definitely, they didn't even do much science into toys until Carolyn Pratt. She literally wrote the book on how toys they're a luxury, but they're a necessity. Toys are the tools that children use to define their parameters of their world. That's why it's important for kids to have toys. And the lack of toy kids that don't have toys, or they lack those tools, they're already at a disadvantage.
So tell me, you've been exposed to such a huge variety of toys over all these decades that you've been collecting, 1890s, it's incredible. How do you personally feel about these hyper-realistic toys that become so popular because of the comic book movies? All of these McFarlane toys, is that it?
The hot toys.
Yeah, like
toys. Like, is that something that you see becoming true collectibles, or do you think that's?
I mean, those are more like models type collectibles versus toys.
Yeah, I would
right?
see those as. I don't ever see those getting up in value the same way that vintage does. Toys now.
I mean, they're
the
super
stock market
expensive.
version of like the toy world and what things are worth. It's the vastness of toys and how many there are. I think it does kind of make hot toys kind of like, okay, this is the limit. Like, I don't think it'll go as high just because the amount that's out there.
Yeah, I also asked because you mentioned the the joy that the kids have of playing with the toys, but also how it shapes their world. I often wonder, like, those toys just don't seem like they're truly meant to be really played with, right? Like that Mickey saw some serious love. You can tell by looking at it, right? I don't see the hyper realistic, Batman from the latest movie being something some kids just gonna like thrash.
Well, I think in my opinion, you tell me if I'm wrong, Matt. I feel like those toys, or I call them models, basically, are for the adults, purely for the adults, just to have that moment to look at and be like, oh, I like like you mentioned, the Batman, or if I had a Star Wars, I was like, oh, I love Star Wars. That looks realistic to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it pulls me back. It's one of those loves. I feel like that, or decorative, or it becomes like it's a style.
It's a statue toy you can move. That's
exactly,
what it is.
Yeah. I think that's, to me, in my opinion, what they more or less are.
I like that they're doing that because I always tell people when I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So whenever I got a toy, it meant a lot to me. And, I would notice the difference between my toys and others. And so whenever I would get a toy that, had just a little bit more articulation, like the wrist swiveled, I just thought this was worth more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could get more out of it.
Are you for and against more of the technology play into I guess the toy world? Because I mean, you have toys that go back, obviously, like with the Game Boy, right? I mean, that's electronics and things like that. But it's very, very different now. I mean, with the capabilities that they have, do you feel that's going to enhance toys as they go forward, or do you think that they're actually, people are yearning for collections like this because it's basically not what they can get anymore? Well,
I think it should go both ways because, especially with technology, I've learned a lot, like raising my daughters, that like I can't take technology away from them. Then they're going to be stuck like me, and I'm not good with technology. I'll always feel like I'm behind. But they will grow with technology, and to take that away from them, you're doing a disservice. It's okay to limit time on things, but to take something away completely, now you're taking something out of a zeitgeist from them. They'll never understand. What if they become a tech genius? What if they do? You're limiting them by taking something away that everyone else has access to. So before I had kids, I was like, all these kids on their dang iPads all the time. I was that crouchy old man. But then the second I had kids, I was like, oh.
When I was your age.
and then I try to take it away, and then I start to really think about it and be like, if I take this away and give them no time, then I'm doing disservice. I want them to be better than me, not worse than me, or the same as me.
Yeah, I can relate. As a father, I can relate to that entirely. And I tell you what, I remember my own parents taking things away and trying to wrestle with that idea of what's too much time, what's not enough time. And for me, actually, it happened to be usually less video games and more about actual toys. And it was more my father would come home from work, you're still playing with the G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Like, go outside, get some sun, right? But I was doing really elaborate stuff. I was, like you said, big, elaborate scenes.
You were building universes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My mind was
that's not
just
a small
going.
thing. That's a big thing that you're doing that some people just aren't able to do.
Do you feel that, and parents when they come in with this whole boys have these toys and girls have these toys, has that become an issue that you find that people debate when they come and view your
We've only had a few
museum?
instances where people would make comments like, "Oh, you put a lot of work in Barbie, not much love in this," and it's like, "Well, bud, no, it is what it is." Like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of Barbie stuff. Barbie is a very big part of women's history, and I'm sorry that you didn't like to learn about that, but that's just, it doesn't change that. We do talk a lot about how, the glass box put on women in toys in the 50s. You had two jobs that you could do. You could be a mother, you could be a housewife. I didn't have a single ceiling above me. Literally my whole life, people have been telling me, sky is the limit. You do not, like, every toy I had, every toy exists for me. I never even crossed my mind that something doesn't exist for me. And so, especially with not only the glass box put on women, but then the even smaller glass box that's put on people of color. And most of the time, their toys were just a white doll spray painted black. It didn't even have any features. It wasn't until some parents would get together and make certain companies like Shindana Toys, and that would really make giant leaps and say, I want something for my kid that just looks like them. That's not something hard to ask, And so until you had people challenging the status quo and saying, hey, these other people want toys to look like them too, and that's important for you to see what you could be. And I know a lot of people, it's kind of like your environment. If you don't have those opportunities to at least show you that there's a light, then there's not going to be a lot of hope for you. And in turn, that affects your decisions, and that affects your whole life. And so it's very, very important to us about not only the toys that people had, but especially the toys that people didn't have.
Now, when you have people visiting the museum, do you get a lot of feedback in that regard? Like, oh, I wasn't allowed to have that, or man, I see Barbies now that look like me. I wish we had those when I was younger. Is there that conversation happening?
Yeah,
often?
like I'll get it sometimes from like guys who they wanted Barbie when they were a kid, and their parents just would tell them no, and they would.
Boys don't play with dolls. They play
in a
with
way,
men
you're
dolls.
making fun of your own child by their likes and wants. But what if they could have been a fashion designer and been the greatest fashion designer, but you squandered that joy that they never got to flourish? Now, I think parents are a lot better at noticing these things in their children, and they're saying, "Oh, that's beautiful. I'm gonna nourish that."
Hey, thanks for watching. Tune in next week for the conclusion of this episode in part 2. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss any of our new content.